Now, even today, it's still like a clock. It's a lot older because animal would have been coming back. 2 large legs, the body, and his favourite fruit's probably mice, mingoli. Before that, when I was a young guy, I was very passionate to learn about my Aboriginal outstations. Now these outstations, they call them homelands. And in the 1980s, they built these outstations and they called it the Homeland Movement. And the reason they called it a movement is because they built these homelands or these outstations where these creation stories belong to. So the old people or family members that are the custodians or caretakers for particular creation stories could live out in the country and look after sacred areas and look after their jukuba. So it's just like he looked after Nintaka Jukuba at Mount Woodruff. It's the second highest mountain in Australia, highest in South Australia. And he's a caretaker for that. So Aboriginal people are like other ancient cultures where they've got an animal totem. So his animal totem was Ngindaka, and that becomes my animal totem because he became my father and adopted me to this country. Now, he's quite a remarkable man. But I want to tell you a story about what he told me. He told me this story and he didn't just tell me one time. He told me many times. So I obviously wasn't getting the message that he was trying to convey across to me. He told me a story about when he was a little boy, maybe about 8 years old, 10 years old. Might have been in Yinga actually. He was a little boy. He walked from this country here with his father all the way to Ernabella, which is about a 5 to 7 hour drive. So you can imagine how long it would take you to walk. And that could have been in the middle of summer. Now there's a large drought that come through here when he walked this country. And now the only way how his father and himself stayed alive is because his father remembered these creation stories. Jukuba, the song lines that I was talking about, Eat Juddy Juddy, Travel Across Country. All these song lines are a map of the country. It's survival. You remember that? You remember how to survive. You got to imagine some of these water holes hidden up in between rock ranges. If you don't know it's there, you're never going to find it. How they remember it is they remember these song lines. And the reason they call them song lines is because there's the songs attached to the country. And they recite that song. They sing that song when they travel through country, and that helps them remember Jukuba, characteristics of animals, how to hunt for animals, where to find water. All of that is in Jukuba. The Mala people, the rough-faced Wallaby people that come from the north, and they come here for ceremony. All the men, they sat down and decided to design and shape this giant big ceremonial pole called the Nadawara. After completion of designing and shaping this ceremonial pole, 2 senior men were elected to climb Uluru, exactly where the chain is today, take this ceremonial pole all the way to the top. Once they placed that ceremonial pole on top of Uluru, this signified the start of the ceremony. Off into the west Dakota Jura, just before the WA border, it's where the Windulka people are from, Mulgaseed people. They also decided to have a ceremony. And the senior men off into the west wanted to invite the Mala men. So they elected 2 young men to travel country, send out that invite. Those 2 young men, they travelled through this country, many days and many nights it took to finally arrive here at Uluru. They sat down with the senior men, gave them the invitation. But the senior men, they declined that offer. And the reason they declined the offer is because they already started the ceremony. To maintain law, Jukuba, culture, they've got to teach that story from the start right through to the finish. Can't cut them off halfway through, because if they're cutting them off halfway through, young people aren't learning the importance of Jukuba, learning the importance of the moral meanings and teachings within Jukuba. So they declined that offer. And those 2 men, they took off back west. And when they got back west, they told the senior men the news that they've been declined the offer. Now this actually upset the Wendelka men. It upset them that much that it created a anger, jealousy and revenge within them. And out of that anger and jealousy and revenge, they took control of a creation being that roamed aimlessly around that area that goes by the name of Korpan. Now Korpan, he comes in the form of a dingo. With inside his body, he has a magical power where he can change form and shape to many different animals. He can change from many different land animals, disguise himself within the grass, change himself from many different bird animals, disguise himself within the tree. Now, they've sent Korpan here to attack the Mala people. It was just on nightfall when Korpan was approaching around the other side of Uluru. Women have been out all day collecting seeds to make bread. But none of the women could see Korpan off into the distance because he was in disguise. He was using the magical power. And so Korpan was sneaking up on the women. None of them could see him. But luckily, there was another creation being in the area at the time that goes by the name of Lunpa. Lunpa was a magical kingfisher bird woman. And Lunpa also had that magical power where she could see Korpan in disguise. So off into the distance she's seen Korpan. She's called out as loud as she can in that famous bird cry. Bakala, Bakala, get up, there's danger. There's danger approaching. So all the women have got up. They've fled the area now. They grabbed all the children. They're running as quick as they can. Korpan starts chasing after the women, catching up to them. The women are trying to get away. They have nowhere to go but to run into the men's area where the men are having ceremony. It's like what I was talking about before, men's business, women's business. Sacred to men, so they've broken the law. They had no choice. Now everything's being thrown into disorder. That whole ceremony has stopped now. Everybody's trying to get away from Korpan. And the only way they could get away is by two brave men that took battle against Korpan, stood their ground and stood fight. This allowed for the Mala people to take off south of here to a place called Olkia. And those two brave men that stood their ground and stood fight, they paid that ultimate sacrifice of bravery. They were devoured by Korpan. They become Jukaricha. Korpan chases the Mala people south of here to Olkia, catches them up there. This is the only part of the story that I can teach you today. For us to hear the rest of the story, we'd have to travel that song line to the next location, to Olkia, which is a couple of 100 kilometres away. So you can see within that story, it reinforces the fact of how ceremony is sacred. Also teaches about when the men are having ceremony, that they've got to cooperate with each other. Can't have one ceremony over here and one taking off over here and get jealous and angry with each other. It's got to be cooperation with each other. It teaches about that it's wrong to take anger and revenge on one another. And also be mindful and look out for danger. So lots of teachings within that story. So what we're going to do now is we're going to head over that little bridge, get there, and we'll make our way into the next cave.